Imagine if we had a school year in school about ideologies, even though the right would hate it? Honestly, I think schools need more of that. Schools need more sociological, political, and ideological education, insofar as, like, you need to understand the world you're about to enter, right? In light of the Department of Education potentially, like, going kaput soon, I feel like this is especially pertinent. The experiment of public education began in the 1830s in the United States. Seriously, there's something called the Public Education Act, or I think the Education Act of 1834 that established public schools to be funded by tax money. That is a law that predates a lot of things in this country. It was a good first step. It was a fantastic first step, because literally everybody everywhere who knows anything about education is capable of acknowledging that it paid off in spades. You know? Every economist in the world, even the ones that purely look at things from a profiteering perspective, will acknowledge every, like, $1 that you invest in public education, either primary, secondary, or, you know, post-secondary, pays off in dividends. You know, it creates an educated workforce. It creates people who understand the flaws of the system, how to correct them. It creates a productive society. It creates not just a productive society, but an aware society, a critically aware society, and a very sociable society. You know? Because everybody doesn't have peasant brain. And when everybody doesn't have peasant brain, life gets a whole lot better. We've seen this over the past 100-something years. The increase in the quality of life of liberalism, under liberalism, ever since the turn of the 20th century, up until, like, you can almost track the quality of life getting worse to the rise and fall of education. You know, education is super, super important, but there's a big but here, and I like big buts, and I cannot lie. Education also poses a threat to the ruling class, to the owning class, because with every class that a student takes in the social sciences, the more they learn about the structures of society, how they are socially intertwined and connected, how power reverberates, how decisions are made, the kind of people that get impacted and hurt by certain things, the more they develop an awareness, the closer they get to achieving a sort of class consciousness, a political consciousness that would lead them to say, like, hey, why the fuck are some people allowed to have this much money? How is it fair that there's, like, an entire another world economy's worth of money, or more, we actually have no idea how much, in offshore accounts? Meanwhile, somebody's flipping burgers for $7 an hour, can't pay rent, and is starving at the end of the month. You know? How is that fair? An educated person is more likely to pick up on that. A non-educated person is not. And remember when I mentioned earlier that the only time billionaires really care to do anything is when their class interest is threatened. This is one of those times. And to top it all off, a lot of billionaires, being on the right, are also fucking racist. And a lot of the big strides made in public education in the 20th century disproportionately benefited, you guessed it, black people. They really don't like black people. So when black people started going to public schools, immediately the right wing at a global scale scrambled. Well, you know, black people in the US and minorities in Britain and Europe and elsewhere immediately scrambled to start dismantling the public education system because they knew exactly what kind of threat that posed. Yes, exactly. With a united working class across racial, gendered, and sexual, like, identity lines, the billionaires don't stand a fucking chance. And they know that. So you dismantle the tools that the working class could use to unite themselves. You dismantle the education system. Pit the white working man against the black working man. Pit the working man against the working woman. Pit the working straight man versus the working gay man. And you have secured your class interest for at least a long time. Not forever, but a long time. Keep everybody from realizing that fundamentally they're part of the same group. And you do that By dismantling the education system, by restricting education to the private sector, to private schools that rely on tuition fees that only wealthier people, wealthier families can send their kids to. That way, the class war can be fought on very lopsided grounds. The billionaires will have all the advantage. They will have the education on their side, and the working class will be stupid and uneducated because they can't afford an education. That is by design. And that is why public education has been stripped to the degree that it has. Public education has been taken a sledgehammer to so hard precisely because of how big a success it was. You know, for a, you know, a glorious, you know, 3/4 of a century or something like that, the world got a whole lot smarter. You know, as shit as things were for a lot of people, and, you know, for most people in a lot of places, you know, we had something. Feel sorry for my older brother's children. Yeah, I do not envy the parents or the kids that are going through the education system at this time right now. As public schools are being picked apart, as AI is running rampant, AI has been an instrumental tool at picking apart public schools from the inside. Because now, going to public school and getting an education free of charge doesn't guarantee that you'll come out smart at the other end. Because a lot of students rely on AI, the professional bullshitting machine that will just pick random stuff from a data set and be like, this is what you're looking for, right? And then the undiscerning eye will see it and be like, yeah, that's good, without engaging with anything at any level. You know, they just zone out. Back when I was in school, I refused to do the fudge. What is the fudge? And my math teacher threw a hissy fit in high school. I don't know how to interpret. Oh, the Pledge of Allegiance. Yeah, I've had those moments as well. Look, education can still be a mixed bag. In fact, there was a substitute teacher one time. Of course, there's a substitute teacher. You know, I'm in a relatively progressive area, so there's not many teachers that would get mad at me for not standing for the fucking Pledge of Allegiance. Extremely cringe and nationalistic thing where you literally like devote yourself to the state. Like, no, thank you. I don't even know what the pledge is. The Pledge of Allegiance in America is a really bizarre ritual in public school where at the beginning of every day, they over the like school PA system, they announce like, okay, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And there's an American flag in every classroom. This sounds like some North Korean anti-American propaganda, but this is real. And every student pledges their allegiance to the state, to the nation of America, every morning. It is not mandatory, but there's a considerable amount of social impetus that you have to overcome to realize, hey, wait a minute, I could just sit down and not do anything. National anthem, but without the national anthem? Yeah. Yeah. Kind of like that. And you know, there's a substitute teacher. I was in 9th grade, mind you. This is, you know, geometry class. I'm in 9th grade sitting down, and I decided, you know what? I'm not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance because pledging allegiance to the flag of the United States is fucking cringe, and I don't care about the flag. And even 9th grade me, stupid as I was, he was cooking, you know? And the teacher was like, oh, you're disrespecting our country. And that was the moment that I knew I did the right thing, that this motherfucker had his feelings hurt, that he caught feelings over me not standing to, like, pledge myself to the state. What a fragile motherfucker. Guys like Glass, you know, he was a big dude, this substitute teacher, but I'm willing to bet that, like, if I so much as fucking touched him, he would crack and shatter like a sugar glass bottle. You know, if he was that touched over me just sitting down and not saying or doing anything. It's not like I was, you know, one of those kids that was a disruptive influence or whatever during the pledge. You know, I didn't like make a verbal protest of it. I just kind of sat down. And even that was enough. Whatever teacher says you're disrespecting America makes us want to do it more. Honestly, yeah, wait. Maybe he was cooking. Maybe he was cooking because he knew that, like, 9th grade me would not respond well to an authority figure saying, respect authority. Hold up. Plot twist, potentially. Anyways, I'm getting off track. I've put all of 2 things on here, and we still got a lot to go, and we're 40 minutes into the stream. I want to keep going with this. But yeah, that's sort of my, like, those are my opinions on how important public education is, and like, legitimately, I think that it is hard to get more important of a public institution than public education. Like, that is a gateway to so much else. That produces all the social scientists that are able to create any other competent, like, social institution to address social ills. You want to fight crime? Have a well-educated population. They'll understand exactly what causes crime and how to stop it. You know, you want to ensure, like, access to healthcare. You want everybody to have healthcare. Have a well-educated population of social scientists and doctors, and they will know exactly what to do in a medical desert in an underserved community. Or on the alt-right. Oh, right. The alt-right is here. I don't know if I'm going to do that yet. At least here we'd have to stand for the national anthem, in which we didn't have a flag. Our school would just put up a PNG of a Canadian flag on the announcement slides. That's pretty funny. All right, everybody. It is time for the national anthem. Behold this JPEG. I thought that was cringe enough. Yeah, it is pretty cringe. You know what's even like more sus is that there are photos of 1920s classrooms in America. They would do the what came to be known as the Nazi salute to the flag. In school, what you're supposed to do is put your right hand over your heart. So you're pledging your heart and soul to the nation state. Not creepy at all. But in 1920s US, up to up to the Second World War, they would do the Hitler salute. They would have all the kids doing the Roman salute, as it was known at the time, to the flag. Anywho. Hello, Editing Y2K here. This is just one part of a multi-part series of me ranking all the ideologies that I know enough about to comment on. It took place over the course of 2 live streams earlier in the year, and the other parts will be all available on a playlist if you're interested. Please check it out, and thank you for watching.